7 o'clock, Wednesday, January 3rd, and I'll call the Finance Committee meeting to order. I'm Sarah Melish, the chair. Tonight we have Mike Pratt, Dean Otis, Maury Creighton, Peter Twining, Andy Olderman, and Greg Federspiel is on Zoom. Can you hear us, Greg?
I can, thank you. Yes, good evening.
Okay.
Turn up his volume at all?
Can you turn up your volume at all? Greg, you're not coming through real loud.
I'll try to speak up.
Yep, that's better.
Okay. Yeah, my microphone will not be picking up well.
Or there might be a volume adjustment here.
I think it's the volume here is what we adjust.
So we have someone on in front.
There is nobody on
There is
front.
nobody. You're me. We just touch the icon.
You can check it, Maury.
Hope I don't screw it up here. No, I think we're already at 100%.
Okay. So I don't know if people have a chance to take a look at the book. I looked at it on vacation in the
Wow,
evening.
you've had a great vacation. Wow. I'm impressed.
My sister said, what's that book? So I thought that tonight we would kind of try to address those areas we might have concerns about, might need more information, and then kind of select our schedule, hopefully starting with the ones that seem the easiest. Okay, do you have anything you want to start out to say to us, Greg?
No, I think what you just said is fine. I know that there'll be further information on the launch service that is a possibility for the harbor department. We had that discussion at the December meeting, but I know that Peter, I believe you and Kathy were going to meet with Bion and try to develop a more detailed look at the costs and revenue streams, put together a more formal business plan approach. And so I think, you want to have that before you have him come in to talk about that.
Not done that yet, but I will.
Okay, yep,
And I will suggest that she and I and Brian get together and start that conversation, maybe with a direct conversation with Tom.
good, that would be great, yep, okay. So we'll kind of we'll probably aim to do the launch service, towards the end of January.
Yes.
Okay,
Here. I'll try to get together next week with the gang.
okay. And one of the pieces that we're gonna want to know, Greg, is the deadline for doing the FinCom booklet, because we should have more time this year.
Yes, you will. So that'll really be the 1st of April. It'll be early April that deadline will.
Okay,
hit. We don't have an exact date yet for the annual town meeting. The fourth Monday is Passover, so we're going to avoid the 22nd.
okay,
And so it could be the Thursday, or it may kick to the first Monday in May. There are some people who have pre-planned vacation time the week of the 29th.
okay,
So it may be as late as I think it's May 6th, if I have my
Yep.
Monday date correct.
okay. Sounds good.
Does that need to be modified again? Didn't we pass some vote to have it on the last week of April, or was there some flexibility in that? I mean,
Select board has flexibility.
what's that?
Right,
The
so
select board has flexibility, so
Yeah, okay,
they can change it.
it doesn't, not something that has to be set by vote.
No, they can change it. They've done it
Sorry,
before.
I take a moment and just chat with you about what you want by way of the launch service. But
Yeah.
I think we're going to produce, subject to what all you want, is essentially all here look at their total cost as well as the capital cost for replacing engines and all the things over some 15 to 20 year period. I happen to think 15 is long for an engine. Maureen, what does the yacht club do for an engine replacement?
They
It's
use-
shorter than that, isn't it?
It is, but, well, the engines, it's more the transmissions.
Oh, okay.
And rudders and things like that, and they get really heavy use. I mean, they're used, I think, much more than Tom Baker's,
Okay.
but my sense is transmissions are 6 to 8 years.
Well, I'm inclined to use that kind of shorter period
Yep.
for this. So we want to look at over a longer period of time on capital replacement, whether it makes economic sense.
Right, and I think that, you know, my suspicion would be is if the town takes it over, that probably usage will increase,
Right.
would
That's
be,
my impression.
would be my guess.
So I use that standard.
Yeah.
Unless you want
Six-
to-
six-
6 to 8 years.
What do you think that's short?
I mean, it seems, sure, I realize it's, exposed to so much and stuff.
So it's really different at least what the yacht club is doing and other clubs is probably every 5 minutes, they're putting the thing in reverse and forward, reverse and forward, reverse and forward.
Yeah.
So there are multiple landings and sort of discharges, pickups. So the use on that part is pretty heavy. These engines, at least they never really come up to high revs. So yeah, so I mean, one of the things we've always done with the yacht club is we get what we call naturally aspirated engines, so no turbochargers. You know, they just don't have a chance to run. Run like crazy. They're just chugging around all day long.
Right, that's,
Yeah, so.
I mean, better to be conservative and cynical and get proven wrong than the reverse, right?
I agree.
well, I guess my point would be it's realistic as we can. So 6 to 8 years, we're not saying 2 years, but.
And I believe there are 2 launches that Tom has. We should assume it's a 2-launch operation. I mean, that's doing this cost benefit, so we're.
I mean, I think the challenge is probably less about the replacement of a battery and the transmission and oil changes and all that stuff. I mean, ultimately the boat, but the staffing.
Well, that's what I'm asking about.
Insurance, yeah. And insurance is a part of this.
Yes.
Greg, what's your understanding about the 2 launches? I was confused by. The plan is to have one and one for a backup.
Yes, correct. So currently, one is fully licensed and the other is not, but the other one is licensable, but it has a more limited capacity.
Seems like it was 6 or something.
Yeah, 6 or 8 on the one, and
Yeah.
then I forget the capacity on the other, but it is higher.
Greg, do they keep it staff standing by to use second launch, or is it only on certain holidays? Do you have a sense of that scheduling?
I think Bayern believes that typically the only one will need to be in service at a time, but there may be some peak weekends that you would want both out there.
You take in the morning on a Saturday.
Yeah, or Memorial Day or 4th of July, or I don't know, all that.
Is the maritime industry immune to the anti-internal combustion craze that's going? I mean, is there electric boats coming out or? It just strikes me that these are old gas engines that we
Yes,
probably shouldn't be getting.
Well, I don't think
Yeah.
I'm
that.
just gonna keep going with what they have.
Yeah,
Right.
we'll just go with what they do. Mike?
No, just quick on the insurance.
Yeah.
I don't think that's an issue for 2 reasons. Number one, I mean, Greg can correct me, I would assume that like the liability aspect of this insurance, it just rolls up to the general town liability policy, right? It's just,
Yeah, you have to get a special marine rider, but it's not exorbitant.
right, I mean, just in general, I was gonna say liability insurance is not a big one.
Even though this is run as a bit of an enterprise, I mean,
There's still town employees.
okay, well, I didn't know the enterprise element would make it different.
It just comes, who are you gonna sue?
Water and sewer enterprises, and they're still,
Right.
water and sewer enterprises, and they're still town
Swept under
employees.
the-
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
You know, I
Okay.
think in the scale of what can go wrong, it doesn't go wrong at the level of what might happen with a fire department or a police department. But it's certainly more there than somebody going out and checking the water meter.
Yeah.
I mean, you've got people on the water and
But then they
Okay.
can offset theirs the number of days of risk.
Right,
In other words, the DPW trucks are driving 365 and they can always,
Plowing, that's different.
and they can always hit the pedestrian, God forbid, knock on wood, whatever. Just
Yes, sir, all set.
the days of risk.
okay.
So with the deputy, is this just regarding the launch or we also talking about?
I was really just talking about the launch, but
Let's just talk about the launch and then let's kind of figure out which departments we want to hone in on and where we have concerns on the budget. I mean, I think that I had some concerns with the general government budget because the salaries were going up quite a bit, which is a long-term proposition. So I thought we might do that one a little bit later. What do people think?
Is that related to like compensation study that was done?
I don't know, we haven't seen that. Can we get a copy of the compensation study, Greg?
But yes, yes.
Okay, I think that would help. I
You
think
got-
what would also help is to,
But just, I'm sorry, just to interrupt. So that comp study was just for department leaders. It was not all.
Okay. okay. But I think that the way it's presented in the book, it's hard to tell how many people there are. And so it would be helpful to have a breakdown of the people and what their salary is and the increase from last year.
Yeah, so the couple of things going on, right? So the current budget, 24 budget, those numbers don't reflect for the actual salaries that are being paid this year. So that that's one reason why the increase looks bigger than normal. We do have a bigger increase overall. We're doing a 3% pay raise based on the contracts. And then thirdly, you have some added hours. So you have the harbor master, deputy harbor master as part of that new salary total. And then you have the additional hours for the communications coordinator, as well as additional hours, though merging some other hours for a full-time land use clerk.
Yeah, and I couldn't, by looking at it, I couldn't quite figure out what was really happening with those players, because you had the building person who was working for the assessor and what's kind of happening there and whether that's the land clerk or we just need more information on that, I think.
Yeah, let me provide you with a, current staffing and hours and then proposed.
Okay,
That'll be a good crosswalk for you.
yeah, okay, good. That would be helpful.
I have a question.
Greg, on the contracts, the collective bargaining contracts, have we now settled them? Or are they still up in the air and negotiating?
They're all settled except for police, which is, they have a current contract, but their current contract ends in June. So we just started negotiations for their new contract.
And on the ones that are settled, do the salary or cost of living increases go in at the very end of the fiscal year or the start of the fiscal year?
They kick in at the start of the fiscal year.
Okay, and they're not backdated to ones in the prior year, are they?
I'm sorry, say that again?
They're not backdated to an increase in the prior contract year. In other
Correct,
words, they're only prospective.
correct.
And this negotiation in June will be for FY 26,
25.
but our budget's fine.
I know, but that's the way the contract, the police contract will start on July of 2024, correct? The new one?
Correct. So we'll have to estimate what that salary and final contract settlement will be.
Okay. And the
We'll have
police-
we'll have a good sense of that certainly by middle to the end of February at the latest.
Okay, so the other contracts were effective July 1 of 2023. Is that correct?
Yes,
Okay, okay.
Okay, that's the question I was trying to get at. Yeah, okay.
Can I ask a little bit off to the side, but somewhat related to personnel, and I don't wanna, cause too much undue work for Andrea, but I'm looking for just a high level of how many new positions we've added in the past, say, 8 years. You know? I mean, I know we've added a lot, but it would be interesting to kind of see, you know, broken down by, I don't know, 4 departments, right? Police, fire, DPW, and town hall.
Yes, I mean, the short answer to that is, police and fire are where you've added the most, so you've added,
Right.
Right, 6 total there,
Yeah,
and,
It's 6 total between police and fire over the past.
3 years,
Yes.
right, and then,
budget.
going back a little further, we have, well, the full-time planner that's about 8 years ago now. I started out as a half-time planner and then it evolved to full-time. And then, communications coordinator again started out at half-time and now is being proposed to go to full-time. And then,
Or health, right? I mean, I don't want to get into it here. I'm just saying it'd be nice to see that on a piece of paper.
sure, yeah.
You know what I mean? Like,
Staff ends.
because then we could, you know, analyze it in percentage terms, you know, fire went up, I don't know, 30%, you know, I mean, I don't know. It's just high level, feels like it's just added a lot of full-time recently.
Well, I think, and I think some of the things that are confusing is sometimes we add somebody here and take somebody away over here, because we now have the grant writer, which in my mind is a new position. But I think that the hours came from someplace else, I'm not sure.
Right.
But,
Correct, right,
yeah, so that kind of thing just kind of helps us to, because we see bodies.
Right.
You have the one.
And I'm willing, like on police, I'm willing to look at the plus and the minus, right? So the minus of the dispatchers and the plus of the officers, you know, that's fine.
Correct. Yeah, we can show that over time.
Okay. What else do people want on general government? Anything?
Well, I had made a note under the assessor's department.
Yeah.
Whether we should have a full-time building administrator to assist the assessor as opposed to a full-time assessor to assist the building. I think the real need, as far as from a resident's perspective, is in the building administrator, not the assessor.
Right, and I think that's information we need of understanding that interplay. I also need to understand what the assessor actually does. Because it just doesn't seem, it seems to me like the building department does a lot more than the assessor, but I don't know. You know, that's just
That was a note that I.
bird's eye view,
Person I had.
except to generate the lovely tax bills with this guy.
But on our runaway operating costs, is the increase, it was quite an increase this year, it said like 9%, I was looking for the number, but. Is that in addition to the increase that we just had this year? Of the 4 or 5 new, the 2 police and 2 fire, I know we hired this year. Which increased our operating budget, and are we going another 10% over that, or is it
I think-
from the 4 of them?
No, it's from last year. I think you have to look at it by department,
Yeah,
you know.
but we did take a big hit on operating last year.
Right, and general government is going up 9.41% this year. And those are some of the numbers I want to understand.
So that's the same.
I mean, public safety is going up 7.98%, but I think that's the deputy harbor master, which would be a new position.
Well, on that, will that replace the dock hands that are on the dock?
No,
This is in addition to
yes.
This is preparing for Brian's retirement.
Right, but the significance is what pot they're paid from. I believe the new position will be general taxation. I don't know that for sure, but the dock hands are paid from dock revenue.
the last Harbor newsletter said they made $30,000 last year. It didn't even cover a quarter of Vinon's salary. So
Yeah,
it's
but he's
not,
not including just
you
that.
really need to lose the thought that this is anything more than an expense.
Well, I don't know what the harbor fund's made up of entirely, but I saw this mooring fees and other fees and.
Absolutely. Yes.
And I think it's paid out of that, and whether it's worth it is a question you're asking. But it's funded not out of general taxation.
Well,
That's all.
looking at the big picture, I mean, we have one of the best protected harbors in the eastern seaboard. And we're basically removing any resident mooring from in there for transient boating. And we're hiring a launch service to launch them out into Salem Sound where we're putting their boats. I mean.
But that's not quite accurate.
Really, doesn't make
You need to,
I don't know what you're saying.
Okay, well, hold on, let Greg speak.
Okay.
Go ahead, Greg.
right, so I just need to correct some information. So the transient docks have not displaced any moorings. Those moorings have found new homes within close proximity to where they were. So we haven't displaced mooring holders because of the transient docks. That's a misperception.
It seems like that dock space, that empty dock space that's there all week could be used better by the residents than by.
Well, let's wait and discuss this when we discuss the harbor master
Okay. I thought we were.
budget,
talking about-
when,
So that's a
I
big,
mean,
that's a big, this whole harbor thing,
so do you need any more information on the harbor for us to discuss the budget?
I would like to see a historical analysis done before we.
Of what?
touch. The Beach Street corridor, Mascanoma Street, Reed Park, and that harbor is like a Frederick Law Olmsted relic from the late 19th century.
But that's,
They cannot be replaced.
but that's not something for the finance committee. The
Well,
finance
I would
committee,
like to see in the budget to put in a historical analysis before we do any of this work. I think it's chapter 106, it's a standard procedure. And I have some serious concerns that what they're doing is, this is, every real estate brochure in town references a picturesque park.
right,
And we're totally changing that look with this plan. So I just think it's bigger than just
okay.
having something for a hobby, growing a harbor park.
But I'm sorry, I'm a little confused. I mean, whatever transient docks were there last summer, right? They're, assume the idea is they would just stay the same. Right?
I don't think there's anything in the budget to expand them. Is that correct, Greg?
Not right
Not in the
now.
budget, but there is grant funding to
Yeah.
expand the transient docks towards the drawbridge opening.
Okay,
Also,
but-
the fish pier.
Wait a minute.
But so high level, for the next fiscal year and or this summer, those transient docks are gonna stay the same. Is that a fair statement or no?
I think we would hope by next spring, a year from this spring, the expanded transient docks will have been installed.
Next spring, April of 2025.
Yes,
So what determines the go, no go on that expansion?
final permitting. But we,
Final permitting from, I don't know, Army Corps of Engineers or the state DEP, or,
correct, yes.
but then I assume that the town has to vote on it as well, or
No,
no?
this is grants. This is-
It's grant funded, correct, so there's not a town appropriation needed.
Yeah.
And so therefore, it ultimately is up to the select board to decide whether or not to go forward with that. And they've given a green light for the permitting and securing the grant funds.
So effectively, they've already voted yes.
Yes, assuming, there's no surprises along the way.
Go ahead, Mike.
I was just gonna say, I sat in on a harbor advisory committee meeting where they were talking about grants that were being applied for, have been received for expanding the fisherman's dock over toward Morse Pier. And there was a fair amount of discussion about net adds for fishermen and what that really meant. And it was a little confusing. It sounded like it helped a few fishermen, but it didn't help everybody. my comment at that was the drawings and the information was micro focused on the end of Reed Dock around to like Morse Pier. And I had suggested, and others who were there suggested, that they take a broader view and do some renderings to sort of understand what the impact of this was going to look like.
Yeah.
And there was a fair amount of, I would say there's a fair amount of criticism amongst the committee, like, don't mess with what we're doing. And so I think that process is in motion. I've said this before and I'll say it again. I think sometimes the town finds grant money, it initiates a process where we start doing something because there's money available. And then we either add to the money or not, and then we end up saying, well, we kind of got here through a money flow as opposed to let's stand back and really understand what's going on. I think that happens a little with CPC, you know, they put stuff in place and then they say, well, we want you all to maintain it. Well, let's think about it before we get going.
Right.
And I think, you know, Dean has a point. I think we ought to, at least with the harbor, understand what's the cost, what's the impact, and let's make sure that the money's being spent well and not leaving us where we don't go.
Yeah.
So,
Because the cost isn't in dollars. It fits in, you know, the environment, you know, the shadows of all these docks in such a narrow harbor. There's a lot of stuff that I think, you know, the grant money is basically a trap to expand our operating costs.
I don't disagree with anything you just said. I
Yeah.
actually agree with it, but I think unfortunately, because it's not dollars and cents, it's not a FinCom thing.
Right.
It's more of a select
Select board.
board,
Right,
harbor advisory committee, and general town.
It is dollars and cents because, for instance, okay, maybe there might have been 5 weekends, days this year when that dock was filled to capacity. But 90% of the time, there's just the town boats there.
but that's,
And the other thing is, whenever there's inclement weather, we can't charge money to put people there because of this grant. It's a refuge area for rough seas. So it's an auditing nightmare to try to track what kind of money comes in. Whether if there's a thunderstorm, does that mean we can't collect or we can collect? There's just so many unknowns.
well, let's wait till we get to the harbor budget. Because if there's additional expenses to the town, that will be reflected in the harbor master budget.
Right.
Okay, we can't just guess at what's happening. We need to wait until we get the harbor master budget and look at it then.
Yeah.
Okay, is that agreed?
There's nothing in the budget for that.
Okay,
Well, presumably we'll have the opportunity to buy on there, we can ask.
Yeah,
Right.
There's a lot of questions with the harbors. And then it really kicks in with the flood study and when Greg starts talking about reconfiguring the parking at Mascanoma Park and all that. We really need to do a historical look at this, because I think we have some treasured stuff that cannot be replaced, that make Manchester Manchester.
yep,
So I would think a 106, chapter 106, historical analysis. And you gotta watch who's controlling it, because there's conflicts of interest.
Yep.
So,
I would say the finances of the harbor are really complicated. And I know, Greg, I ask you periodically, is the harbor a potential for an enterprise fund? And you always hesitate and say, not quite, but maybe someday, and you know, and I know there are reasons we want to maintain flexibility with funds, but there's so many sources of revenue that are limited here and limited there. And I'm not asking for that now, but I think when we do get to the harbor discussion, it would be really helpful to understand where the revenue comes from and what the revenue can be used for. And
yeah, the enterprise fund would limit our flexibility because
Absolutely.
money couldn't flow back to the general fund.
correct.
And we rely on the water assets.
Yep.
To contribute to our general fund,
Like Singing Beach,
yes,
same deal.
And just to build, I agree 100% with what you said, but just to take it to the next step, I'd be very interested, like, to me, glass half full, half empty, like, to me, there's gotta be some opportunities to get some revenue on the water, wherever those may be, you know, I don't know, mooring fees or transient dock fees, the shuttle service, you know, because high level, like, you just take one dredging. And
It's millions.
right, so, you know, I remember hearing when FinCom a long time ago, about, well, you know, the fees you get on the water can only offset expenses on the water. Fair enough, but one dredging, that's a lot of money, right? So.
Sea level rise takes care of that.
Good point.
Okay. What other information do we need on budget? Where are the other hot points? Yes.
We just building department and staffing. I want to go back to, I think, Dean, it was your comment a moment ago, right? If we look at what the staffing broader picture to that's needed with
I think Greg is gonna give us what the plan is.
okay.
And then we can look at that and ask additional questions to solve that ask. Yeah,
Greg, is that the plan?
Yes,
Okay. Good, because I think it needs to be looked at, as you said.
yeah, I think it's very confusing.
I think that, you know, as usual, big 3 years. Serving of more than just one night's kind of book, fire and public works. Relative to certain staffing, because I think there's one request on public works for adding a person. I think my understanding is that you kind of like push that off for this year. For Chuck's group, is that correct?
I'm sorry, Andy, I didn't catch everything you said there, a little garbled for some reason.
Sorry, so just with regard to staffing increases, we're kind of familiar with the track record for police and fire. But I think Chuck was also making some requests. And I thought I heard in your budget presentation that you had pushed those off for this year. Is that correct?
That's correct. We would like to revisit the DPW staffing in light of some of the capital projects and potentially paying for a staff person through those capital projects because their focus will be on managing those projects.
They have, Chuck proposed very big double-digit increases, 50%, 28% for athletic field and park and beach maintenance. So that's almost another position right there. But is that intended to be contracted out or to do in-house?
No, that would be in-house.
So
Those are expenses in-house. And there's also some shifting of dollars for some of those.
yeah, CPC was very happy to do that. It's increased for maintenance stuff, so. But not, I'm just saying that there's that bubble in the budget that I was looking for and it's good. But should that translate into like someone with some landscaping expertise that might be able to keep our parks looking better, you know, I know Mark Hammond was great and he retired, we really didn't replace him. Walt LeMay was pretty good at that stuff, Clint Hatch, but I don't know who we have now with that kind of expertise, so. And it seems to be lacking in the town performance as far as that type of stuff. So maybe instead of these increases here, we need to look at bringing in some kind of expertise in that area. So that's and yes, the sewer plant guy got deferred, I guess. So. Would that sewer plant person come under enterprise funds anyway? In the sewer,
Yes.
water and sewer? Yeah. Right.
Yes, it does.
I guess one of the other questions I have in this budget, and I haven't taken the time to delve into it. But to what extent have we decreased the amount of general fund going to capital?
Going to capital,
Capital, yeah. I mean, usually capital is paid partially from general funds, partially from, all different sources. And it would be helpful if we had maybe a synopsis over the last 2 years and this year as to what those numbers have been in the various categories.
right, so we have increased the use of general fund money for capital every year over the last 8-9 years.
But we're dropping it in fiscal year 25.
I'm sorry,
Are we dropping it in fiscal year 25?
we're still increasing it in 25,
Okay,
but
it'd be nice to see those numbers.
yeah, I can show you, I can show you that history.
Okay. Yeah, that's because when you get to the capital, it's just more confusing to me.
Can we continue on capital? Oh, big one, but
Okay,
I said it during our summer meetings,
Yeah.
when I first saw this, but I don't see the need to go for a bond. This 9.25. There's nothing we're really gaining from. We've already, no capital improvement, it's all.
well, we're
maintenance.
doing the 4.5 million capital improvement to the sewer.
That's not that's maintenance.
No.
It's process,
They're replacing equipment,
yes,
an entire system.
so that can be capital.
Yeah,
But 4 million is maintenance. And the 4 million for the,
and then there's the
For the
PFA study.
well, now that,
That's-
yeah, so they had originally had 5 million and we kind of said, let's reduce that. They reduced 4 million, but that's a lot of money for a study of something that's not even set in stone yet, what we're doing.
I'm actually with you, but my understanding, because I think we talked about that before, we're not actually committing to issuing a bond, right? What we're committing to is asking for approval for the capacity or bandwidth to issue a bond if we need to.
Right.
But if we run the numbers and there's cash in the bank, then we won't issue the bond, right?
That's correct.
And it will be in stages.
Yeah, exactly. Because the water meter was already voted down this summer. So
What do you mean the water meter?
the water meter replacement, the 1.5
What do you mean it
million,
was voted down?
the select board meeting. We decided not to do that.
Well, they're going
No.
ahead with smart meters.
No, they didn't
Well, it's
vote
in
the
the
water.
budget.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I don't mean to interrupt. But the select board did not vote down the water meters.
They just voted not to do it this summer.
They voted not, they voted to approve the piloting. I think they did 20 pilots of 10 each of 2 different pipes. And they did not approve the new conservation rates. That's what they declined to implement at this time. And
It's in the
so,
rate structure.
So, well, the water meters is a place where I'd really like to look hard at why we need to spend 1.5 million, because we don't really get anything. Other than we save an employee from going around.
No, we get more accurate readings. I mean, you look at the town of Weston or some town into the west,
Yeah.
and they gave people bills in the tens of thousands of dollars
Yeah, well,
because their water meters weren't accurate.
but we went through a water meter replacement program about 10 years ago.
Not really. They weren't done.
That would be,
Yeah,
That's
to call it that would be,
Because everybody, it was just so that you could wire it to get the reading from outside.
No, we kept approving it and nothing happened.
the dining committee.
Boxes of meters.
one of the real advantages of the new meters is they provide consumption data in real time. And what we've already found is that it has detected a number of leaks that people were not aware of. So we see it as a major step forward in conserving water use, because it'll detect leaks in real time, and we can get those leaks corrected much quicker than we have in the past.
And those would be links between the street and the house before the meter?
Well, no, they're typically, they're typically in the house. because they're after the meter.
Doesn't.
Like usage, I suppose, like during the middle of the night, but.
We don't have a water conservation problem this time.
I think, you know, we can certainly discuss it when Chuck is in here, but.
Yeah, that would be, that's a big one. But the bigger one is this 9.5 should be down to our more traditional 4 if we stick with the sewer plant renovation, which is what we recommended over the summer. Or I know I missed it. We didn't really do minutes for the summer meetings, I guess.
Yeah, we do. We administer every meeting.
Have you seen them for the
Recorded.
June, July, August meetings?
I don't know.
Yeah.
I can't sit here and tell you.
But
Which minutes we received and which we have. We have the audit.
Hey Greg, one last follow-up on the bond, just to put it to bed. Again, we're just going for the, whatever, approval for the capacity, right? But not the forced commitment to issue the bond. And given that we're talking here about fiscal 2025, right? Like, it's fair to say, I don't see us issuing a bond, certainly nowhere before June 30th of 2025, right?
Correct, yes.
Right, because what we're looking at here, it goes out to June 30, 2025, and there's no bond that needs to get issued to pay for anything in here.
Except sewer plant.
There could be some bond anticipation notes that would not come due until 26 for the first payment. The FY 26 budget,
26 budget.
correct.
Yeah, right, so we're saying the same thing.
I ask sort of a follow-on question on Mike's question here is, if, we recommend, the capacity to secure bonds for capital, but then do it project by project as we go, who's deciding if we should actually, secure bonds and debt? Is that a selectman discussion? Is that a selectman and FinCom? Is that you, Greg, just saying, we've authorized it, I need it, I'm gonna go do it? What's the mechanism for acting on that, presuming this budget approves it?
Right, so technically the authority then rests with the select board to approve, actually proceeding with the bonds. They have to sign off on the bond notes and all the paperwork that goes along with it, that their signatures are actually required. They can certainly consult with you as the finance committee before doing that. They, in the past, certainly have done that. And so I would see that pattern continuing.
That's not exactly it, so I was looking for.
I would sort of suggest that we be part of that.
Yeah.
That's just
Well, but,
me being cautious.
but I'm glad you asked that question. Right, it's like, this is our chance.
This might be our only chance.
Right. We don't get it later on, technically.
Right.
I don't like that,
At the whim of the select board.
right? We recommend it or don't recommend it now. And we're doing this based on something that, like we just said, isn't even gonna happen in the real world for another 16 months or 17, you know. And we're- I mean, why not just kick it out of 2025, kick it into 2026 if we know that we're actually not talking about issuing a bond and or spending that money in fiscal 2025.
He's talking about bond anticipation notes to cover.
But even that, he said was early fiscal 2026, I thought.
No, the payment would be 26.
So the authorization allows a project to start. We could, and then if we incur expenses without the full bonds, or we could do some of the bonds, depending on what's happening to the market. My sense is the market will continue to get better over time, so it may make more sense to do longer bond anticipation notes, short-term notes before locking in a long-term interest rate. in any case, by having the authorization this coming spring would allow a project to begin. And expenses would be paid for through a bond anticipation note, whose first payment would not be due until FY 26.
So like a bond, just high level, you'd anticipate doing a bond anticipation note in spring of next year for like $1 million, 2 million, 4 million?
Yeah, not the 4 million. We won't have spent that much. We won't need that much at that point. The biggest project will be the sewer plant upgrades.
Uh-huh.
That'll take a couple of years to complete. You know, so at the most, we would have spent 2 million on that. You know, a year from now plus, you know, by the end of fiscal 25, so by June of 25.
If you're talking about a bond anticipation note of say 1 million or 2 million, let's just to pick a number, right?
Yep,
That you'd be looking to do in spring of next year, next calendar year, right? I mean,
you may do that note earlier, depending on how quickly we get a contractor on board and incur expenses. So it could be by the fall that we're doing the note.
but where I was going is for $1 million, like. You don't need the bond, you could fund that out of cash.
Well, that's the other approach if you want to draw down further the reserves. I mean, that's another conversation, right?
Yeah, I mean, for 1 million.
The other conversation is the excess levy capacity, which we have not tapped into.
Yeah, I personally like saving that as dry powder. I mean, I think it's good to have there if, you know.
But in order for DPW to proceed with a $4 million upgrade to the sewer plant, we need to know that we have the authorization to spend that kind of money.
And here's the problem.
Well, we've been paying 4 million a year for water rights. So, I mean, we've been spending that money every year.
Agreed.
And what the emergency was to do winter construction on Walker Road. I don't, there's something fishy going on with that. Why was the emergency that we're doing that in the middle of
It's
winter?
not an emergency.
It's not
it's-
emergency. Actually, we got a
You
better
don't
deal.
do excavation work in a road in the winter because when the soil freezes, you can't compact it and it settles. This type of work is not done in the winter time unless there's an emergency. So
That work has been constructed prior to frost. There is no frost in the ground. So
well, it's not done yet.
we are not paying a premium, and they've already completed the bulk of the digging. So again, we got a better price on that because the contractor had time on their hands.
Well, that's another consideration. So there's a deal.
Yeah.
Yeah. So did it go out to bid?
Oh, yes. Has to.
But the same guy always keeps winning it. Is that?
That's not a discussion.
No, that's not for the auditors.
That has nothing to do with FinCom.
I guess back to the 4 million bonding, like. I don't know, I mean, I'm just thinking out loud here, but you know, maybe there's a
Yes,
middle ground.
the take I have on it is that you need to know you have these resources available to plan and to get projects going. I'm just mildly concerned that there be a few more people in the decision tree about when we bond and how. And I guess what I'm saying is it's no comment about the Board of Selectmen, but I would feel better if people in this group who had familiar with bonding and timing and finance were part of that discussion to say, okay, we ought to go for bonds now, or we ought to wait 6 months. And maybe we ought to go for more or for less and apply that logic to the discussion. That's my only.
Of course, it's just a discussion with the selectmen. I understand.
Correct.
Said that this is the way we'll proceed with it, if they agree.
Right.
Because I don't think that's far out. It's just having the money in hand, I think is critical. Of authorized is what I mean.
Right.
I think is the precondition of moving forward on the project. But whether 4 million is the right number, I have no idea, but.
I mean, not to use a facetious metaphor, it's like I go get a home equity line of credit in my house for 100 grand and I give my wife the checks and just. and learn what happens.
Yeah, we can have discussion, it's like.
I don't know if that's like the right way to.
Well,
do
and
it.
I believe that it does not originate with the selectmen, the select board. I believe it originates with Greg. Correct, Greg?
Originate in terms of the timing.
Yeah. Yes,
So we would propose that to, again, to the board, and the board will be looking towards you for some guidance on that.
can you commit to bringing it before a finance committee meeting when you're gonna do it?
I'm happy to do that, yes.
Okay, thank you.
Complicated.
You think strategic and tactical, and we should be involved in both, right?
Well, just look at the org chart. I mean, the FinCom and Select Board are over the administrator.
It's statutorily a
No.
difference.
Yeah, the difference that the finance committee at the end of the day is an advisory committee,
Yeah.
correct? The select board actually can,
Right,
they're
they're the ones that's next on the line.
But Greg is committed to bringing it to us, so I think we've solved the problem. We don't have to rely on the select board to bring it to us,
We're discussing.
okay?
People must believe in these.
What else? So. We have to kind of set an order of doing things. I'm gonna suggest that we start with the fire department. That seems this year to be one of the least, yeah,
and it'll be, it's fire department operations, not fire department capital, or will it be both?
we can do both.
I like to do them together. I think we,
Okay.
We've always felt it's better to do both.
Yeah, I like that, I was just asking.
So can we do that next week, Greg?
Actually, I think Jake is on the call here. If it works for his schedule, yes.
Oh. Jake,
Hi, yes, what date were you looking?
next week, Wednesday, Yeah.
The 10th. Yep, that
Yes.
should be fine.
okay, fantastic. We'll do both the operating budget and capital, and we'll look for an update on what's happening with call firefighters, et cetera. Anything you want to update us on, we'll appreciate it.
overtime, definitely.
And overtime, yep.
Sounds good, and you should have a report in your emails by the end of your meeting tonight as well.
Fantastic, thank you very much.
Have a good night.
Thank you.
Okay. Okay, so. What else do we want to do next week? Do you want to do just fire or?
I'll throw this out, I don't know what, I'd like to have a more detailed discussion about, I don't know, right, income reserve account.
I would too.
Okay.
And here's my logic, I mean, I'd like to shave it down. And to me, the logic is, we've done a lot of hiring in both police and fire recently, right? And like, the OT for both those departments is what usually eats up the balance of that. So like, in other words, we should be getting rewarded for doing the right thing by hiring more full-time police and fire by being able to have a small.
I think the other change we have is. For the last few years, we've been having a special town meeting. Originally, we never had special town meetings. So the reserve had to last us through a full 12 months, but with a special town meeting, we have an opportunity. If we need to get a supplemental appropriation. That's kind of. One of the other factors is
We'll see
change.
that going forward about specials on a more routine basis.
Well, Greg, what's your opinion on that? Special town meetings?
The likelihood of having them?
Yeah,
Yeah, I would almost guarantee it for this coming
Yeah.
round because of the MBTA zone, that'll.
Right.
That'll necessitate a special town meeting.
In light of Mike's comment, the two things that drive the search, as far as I tell, is legal expenses.
Yep.
And overtime. I don't know how predictable legal expenses are.
or
You might have a better
unusual,
idea with respect to some of the
unusual occurrences. I can't remember what we've used reserve for. It's been things other than just overtime and. Well, and one of the other changes we made, which impacted the use of the FinCom reserve, is we went to appropriations on more general budget lines rather than line by line. And so now Andrea can move between accounts at the end of the year. It used to be that all had to flow through
Right.
the FinCom reserve.
So there's even one more,
Right,
there's even
yeah.
one more.
So that's something we've changed to give more flexibility.
I think it was within department and within, so operating, you know, within a department or expenses.
Yeah.
Never, you wouldn't offset expenses to operating, but with operating within the department. what that is.
So if you had leftover money in planning, you couldn't use it for assessment. I'm a little confused on that.
That's a question for Greg. It's
Yeah, we
more
would
like
do
if
line
you
by
had-
line.
If you had excess let's say you had excess capacity in fire. Or let's say you ran overtime heavily on fire, you couldn't go to like the planning department and pull.
No,
your
but
salaries from there.
it was
That'd be
bigger
within
than that.
departments.
It was bigger than that because we broke down the departments in general government.
Right.
On the appropriations. We've always had fire and police separate.
Yeah.
No, they're public safety now, right, Greg?
Right, it follows your categories that you see
Yeah.
on the summary page. So it's general government, public safety, public works, et cetera.
One of those definitions.
Where, do
Correct.
you know where in this book the FinCom reserve fund is?
Um,
We're on 126.
It's,
66.
yep, you're quicker than me.
66 or 160?
69.
69 is the reserve. I had wrote next to it 120.
So just Greg, high level question, if the finance committee decides that we would, you know, we're in favor of lowering that by, just picking a number, you know, 50 grand, like where would you allocate that? Or who knows, it's too hard to answer right out of the gate.
I probably wouldn't allocate it. I would, that would just be excess levy capacity to lower the taxation. At this point, I mean, the budget, the proposed budget obviously is balanced.
That's the honest answer I've heard, man.
Allocate some of it to capital.
Yeah, good. You got the flexibility.
So the logic here is we would decrease the FinCom reserve in anticipation of 2 meetings a year.
As
And-
well as.
And it's the fall meeting, we try not to do a lot of financial stuff, but if something really pressing comes up or whatever, you've got that option.
As well as the OT stuff, like,
Yeah.
I mean, the OT
Was it-
should be, like,
With our prior town administrator, we used it all the time. He wasn't very good at
Yeah.
finances.
Yeah, I mean, the other
Controlling
challenge is that the
expenses.
fall meeting is really only 3 months into the new budget year.
Well, it depends.
Yeah.
Right, you're right, it is.
So it's
yeah,
very little track time
Right,
before you come before the people and say, hey, we kind of goofed or we need to make an adjustment here, or early in the year as opposed to late.
That's why he's better. to
Craig, can you just give us a breakdown of the last 5 years, how we've used the FinCom reserve?
Yes, we can.
Good,
Great.
that'd be good.
Because I need to realize more on how comfortable we are with overtime being under control and legal not going.
It's
crazy.
more than just overtime. We're
I understand that.
concentrating too much on overtime because that's what we've paid recently.
Okay.
But, we have other issues that have arisen with time, workers' comp that we have to pay,
Right.
unexpected.
111F.
I mean, we'll see it when Greg
Right,
provides this detail, but
yes.
my gut agrees with Peter. I feel like the biggest bulk in the recent years has been OT.
But that's why, because that's what we happen to have seen is short time.
Right, yeah,
That's all.
The one thing we might have is to make up for the policeman's bargain.
Policeman what?
Their collective bargaining. So, I mean, if we budget say a $50,000 increase. And it comes out to 150. We might have to use the reserve fund for that.
I would assume that that would not be as much of a wild card. Since the other three unions have already
Yeah,
agreed.
I mean,
to
we
a
used the
certain-
reserve fund last year for something like that.
Right,
So, yeah,
yes,
yeah.
yeah. But I think we're more timely on getting the contracts resolved too. I think didn't we have periods, Greg, when it took us over a year to get the contracts done?
Yes,
Yeah. So,
Yeah.
High level, once Greg gives us the detail of the past few years, I think we'll be able to have more
okay,
informed and substantial discussion about it.
so we'll have that discussion next week. In addition to the fire.
Is that all right, Greg? You'll be able to get us that info?
we should be able to, yes, that should be fine.
The police look pretty innocuous.
You wanna do the police, the 17th, well, the 18th? Or do we think we can do both police and fire in one meeting? No, okay,
We can always, grab some of the smaller budgets.
okay. So police on 118. That's a Thursday. That's the third week of the month.
So it's the 11th for the fire.
Fire and FinCom reserve is at 10. Police is the 18th.
Some other small departments.
Harbor Master Police.
Okay.
That gives us a little, that gives us some wiggle room if more info is needed on harbor. That's good.
Okay.
And they're kind of the same department too.
Well, they certainly overlap in their responsibility. Okay. So police and harbor master on the 18th. Now I think we need to meet with the library this year. It's my understanding that the library has 150,000 in a capital request to be the town share of $100,000 grant to study expanding the library.
Let me try to read that. So they want the town, us to commit 150 grand in order to get 100,000 grant?
That's correct.
Okay.
And this is to study expansion of the library. So it's setting something in motion, like gets set in motion with the schools, is my understanding.
Correct, there's a state capital program for libraries that they have reconfigured now. It hasn't been available for quite a number of years, but they have relaunched it. And so there's, as Sarah indicated, similar to MSBA, the school program, where it's a prescribed process. So you have to go through a planning process, and that's where the match is required. So the state will give you a smaller percentage of the total cost. We have to come up with a larger share, so that's that 150 in order to get the 100. But then it would position the community to secure a portion of the ultimate capital cost if it were to proceed to an actual project.
I'm just concerned about the timing of setting something like that in motion.
I'll go stronger than that. I'm 100% against it. Given everything else that's going on, and you can't do everything at once. You can't spend capital on, PFAS, water sewer treatment plants. There's DPW, there's all the trucks, and that's just 250 grand just for the study. The amount of the actual CapEx to do the expansion would be obviously somewhat bigger number.
Do you remember, Craig, what the number is for expanding the library? In millions, Bob?
Well, they don't have a good number. My, I would, if I were to guess, I would say it's in the $4 to $5 million range. Their goal would be to have a large portion of that paid for through, so it'd be sort of a third of, three-way split. Town general funds, state grant, and then private fundraising.
I'd rather clean water myself.
I have I was floating an idea of a library annex / senior center project. Combining those two, maybe somehow. I don't know how that, I mean, it seemed like a good fit.
Well, the other thing that's on the capital budget is $750,000
I know, and that might be the
To-
location.
acquire a building for a senior center, right? Is that still on?
That is still on, yes.
Okay,
I know it's a big priority for the select board to do a senior center. I'm not opposed, but maybe by combining a library annex, we can kill a couple birds.
Here's my problem with that. We've been talking about a senior center since I've been on it, right? So that's, I don't know, 7, 8 years, right? So I get it. But then PFAS came out of nowhere, right? PFAS wasn't there 6, 7 years ago. It came out 2 years ago. I don't know. And it is what it is, right? It stinks, but it's like, it's gotta be dealt with, right? I mean, I don't think anyone wants to be drinking plastics and stuff.
Well, you gotta look at the hype behind that, and the fact that, with a system our old, we probably have a lot of lead service lines in the ground, which are a lot more hazardous than any PFAS. So, we haven't looked at, I was thinking we need to look at that a little bit more, at least to find out what we have left in our system. Because it is a huge nationwide thing, there's all kinds of funding at the federal level to remediate it, and quite frankly, it's probably more of a concern than leaking pipes.
I guess here's my 2 comments on that on PFAS. Number one, I've read the news and there's towns much not as well off as us.
Yeah.
That have spent boatloads on dealing with PFAS.
Well,
Now, again, I'm not a scientist, but even further to that, at some point, I think it could come down to like a state mandate, right? So like, whether you believe the science or not, you have to do it, right? Like,
Yeah.
I mean, so then it's not even about what you want to do, it's.
Well, I think we're eventually gonna put a charcoal filtration system for the PFAS.
That's what we're talking about, right?
Yeah, but I also think that, looking at the hazard spectrum, perhaps the lead service lines might be more damaging for our health than.
So that probably is being dealt with the pipe, replacement program that's going on each year. And will be going on for the next 30 years. I think on the library front, I would really like to know the long range plan and how it fits in. And I mentioned this at our last meeting. It seems like everybody has to have their own space to run their own
Right.
programs. And we're spending a lot of money on bricks and mortar spaces so that people can be in their own spaces for programs. I think we need to step back and say, do we really need to spend millions to create multiple spaces here? And it seems like the library is a little less of a priority right now than some of these other things, but let's see what they say.
okay, so let's do DPW on January 24th and library and Parks and Rec on January 31st. Does that make sense? What?
Hold on, one at a time.
So DPW on the 24th,
DPW on the 24th,
Okay.
okay? And then on the 31st, library, Parks and Rec.
All you need to know is you show up every Wednesday.
Hey,
So I understand.
No, it's Thursdays on the 3rd week of the month, Mike.
Now, I had a request on DPW. More information.
Okay,
Look at our website.
It would be 2 requests now. One, 2025 capital improvement plan, just for next year. I'd like to see more of a breakdown on road resurfacing. I mean, they gotta know what roads they're gonna do at this point. But that was one of the questions I was gonna have for Chuck to have at that meeting on the 24th. With a little bit, so on page 195. The top line, I think they're plugging numbers, but I'm wondering if we can put a little bit more. Get a little bit more intelligence to that estimate. I mean, 700,000 for road resurfacing. Is that tied with the water main stuff? Is it separate, or is there certain roads that we're targeting? The drainage, 250 for the drainage sidewalk, other specific areas that we're gonna, I mean, I get that you use this kind of system for the 27, 28, 29 down the road stuff. But for next year, I would like to see a little sharper pencil on what we're spending 1.455 million on. Besides, you know, the 10 things on that list.
Plus, there's also where the water pipe replacements are going to occur.
Yeah, so that's down the road on the water pipe stuff.
And I think Chuck's got a pretty long forecasted list that he had shared with me. You know.
Yeah, I think he gave it to us at a meeting.
Like 2 meetings ago,
Yeah.
for roads, and, what years and what.
Yeah. So I don't know,
That was pretty
I
good.
think he'll do, but I think-
Just kind of, yeah, explain what the plan is in fiscal year 25. Okay,
The second thing for Chuck would be to see what kind of, if we have any kind of information on what we have for lead service. Because I know,
what do you mean by lead service? Are you talking about the ones going to the houses?
yes, from
Well,
the
that's
water
the
main to
problem
the
with
house.
the people.
No, it isn't, it's combined. It's from the water main to the house. You usually do that with the water place.
Greg, whose responsibility is it to service the lines from the main to the water meter?
So it's the the property owner's responsibility from the shut off in the street to the house.
That's what I thought.
Okay. Where is the shut off in the street?
Usually I'm curved.
So
The
there's
curb
a
stop.
section from the water main to the property, that shut off is.
Yeah, like I have one right at the road on my hill. There's a great big blue painted.
Yeah, right,
And so I have to deal with a pipe from that
right.
to 250 or 300 feet to my water meter.
But they use lead routinely up till the 30s. And most of our pipe went
But
in.
that's not the town's responsibility if it's surface lines.
So
It is
we are- so we are-
partial, and the
Okay.
town,
Hold on, Greg.
So we are required to monitor, spot check for lead in water. And we do that at the faucet in people's homes.
Okay,
And we do not have, from that sampling, a large problem in town with lead. We're fortunate that way. So there, we don't have, 100% compliance, but we are not, I'll back up. The sampling that we do on an annual basis has not revealed any problems in the last half dozen years.
if you do find lead at the faucet, is the town required to fix it? Or not?
Not if it's in the household.
Okay, okay.
But I think step one is you determine if there's lead or not, right? If no lead, yay, happy day. If yes, then you need to like further investigate. Where is it coming from? It could be coming from the part of the pipe that's the owner's
Right.
responsibility,
Right.
or it could be coming upstream, right?
Right.
You gotta dig deeper, right?
okay, so where I'm coming from on this is, cities like Chicago, Newark, and they've had very successful programs. Where when they replaced the water main in the street, they basically pull out the service line and push in a new one in one,
Our,
and the residents pay for their portion if they want it.
our town can't afford to do it. We're not like the city of Chicago or Boston,
Well,
where it's 10 feet from the water main to the water meter. It's thousands of feet on some of the property. I have probably 300 feet.
you have a lot,
Yeah, and I'm not unusual.
it's up your driveway.
Yeah, no, it goes up, it's actually up a retaining wall. It's under a retaining wall. But it's Manchester has big properties with long service lines.
Mhm.
We don't have the wherewithal to take responsibility for that. We have enough problems with our water mains.
Well, further, I feel like we're actually going a little bit above and beyond doing these faucet tests. I don't, Greg, how many homes are you testing at the faucet, you know?
Yeah, again, this conversation is best held with Chuck and Nate.
Yeah.
when they're
But-
at your meeting.
But whatever the number is, you know, obviously, if in any of those cases you found lead, I assume you notify that homeowner, and now at least that homeowner has information that they otherwise didn't have, and now, right, I assume they can test their part of the pipe to the house.
The municipal water, if you're buying water from the town, they have to make sure it's safe. You're responsible for the cost from your property line to your meter and then beyond, but it's something that's very hard for an individual homeowner to take on for himself without municipal involvement, because it involves going out to the street to the water main. So it's usually best done going in, then, you know, just like when someone needs a water main replaced, a water meter replaced, they get charged.
And they have to have, the town doesn't install it, you have to have a contractor install it. I've been there, done that twice.
It's called a better, right, well, a federal fee.
But
No.
well, getting back to what I was saying is, the mechanism would work the same way, where if you wanted to get your lead replaced, you would get a bill for your portion of it.
No,
And usually, the mobilization and all that stuff is covered by the.
no, the town doesn't pay for replacing water meters. You have to have a private contractor do it, just like when the house next door to me is being built, a private contractor built all of the utility lines from the street to the house.
Right.
Town had no involvement. So I just don't see, with the amount of infrastructure we have to do in our water mains and our sewer, that we can take on doing anything with respect to service lines. We don't have the capacity.
We may get pushed into situations where, I mean, there's one place in town where there's 4 or 5 houses on a water line that used to be just for one.
Right.
And that is gonna be a chunk of work if that starts showing up all over the place. So
Right.
on the dry powder front, and pull our own till that comes along.
Well, I'm trying to put out as many things in the funnel as we can so we can pick the priorities. And another one I had on DPW water was, we paid for a final design on the loop system at Summer Street. And I thought I heard reference to
Is
it
that Plum
going.
Hill? Is that the Plum Hill one? you're talking about?
Well, I think I heard reference to that. But my question is, shouldn't we go up the tracks to Magnolia Ave, where we put in a new water main up there and do a bigger loop? It's just a technical question, but is there, have they looked at something like that?
Well, the tracks belong up to me, so that could be,
Well, it's,
you're saying.
you know, along the right of way.
Right side of the property.
Yeah.
Well, I think that's a question we can ask Chuck.
Yes.
Okay, yeah, it's, we don't have the capacity to
Keep
answer.
track of all that.
Okay, right,
I think we might need 2 meetings to keep it up.
Okay. And then the rest are smaller departments we can pick up as we go? Do we want a separate one for planning?
General government.
Yeah.
For the planning department, building department?
Well, that would be.
That's for this general government.
I would think it's one meeting, we should be able to hit all the top ones,
Yeah, be able to, yeah.
Okay,
assessor,
And then
treasurer,
if you have
planning.
CPC nearby, and we flow over into CPC with remnants of general government, you know. It might be one of the February meetings.
Yeah.
CPC or general government, maybe on the 7th.
yeah, we'll aim for general government on February 7th.
Okay.
Okay,
February 7th, right?
does that sound okay, Greg?
Yeah, that's fine. I'm sorry, yes.
Okay.
How do you want to proceed on schools?
Oh, shoot, forgot the schools.
I'm sure you
So-
Uh,
Technically, that has always worked where we in the past, have had Pam, no more Avi, come in like in the first week in February, I think, Greg. Usually first, or second week in February.
Yes,
And they may not have totally nailed down their school committee budget, but they're so close. And that's when they usually have maybe their healthcare numbers and some of the other big drivers.
No, not yet.
Uh,
Yeah.
Guess they don't have that quite yet, but
It's
So
a
they will-
sharper version of the pencil, but not the sharpest.
correct.
right, so they will have their public hearing on the proposed budget at the end of January. And then between end of January and first of March, middle of March, there's some fine tuning based on final numbers. Health insurance is typically one of those. Special ed may get fine tuned. Those are some of the bigger drivers.
So
So,
we want to do the school on the 7th and general government on the 14th?
Yeah.
Okay.
Did they end up hiring that woman replacement probably, or, you know?
I don't know the details on that.
Okay.
Do you know, Greg, if the Melissa person,
Was the final candidates that did like a full day
Hired or
thing or accepted, I guess?
yeah, I'm not sure where that stands. I think things were progressing, but I haven't heard the final word on that.
Now, the other thing we had talked about a while ago,
so just, that would be school and also the voc tech, right? We usually handle both those
Yeah.
implementation things on one evening.
Sorry, targeted date.
2/7 for the schools and general government's now gonna be 2/14. I hope you have an erase button.
I didn't get that far into it, so I'm not sure.
I heard folk tech, right?
Yeah,
On the 7th.
Essex Tech.
Greg, when do we get the numbers on the Essex Tech, whatever, meaning like, you know, how many Manchester kids? Right, because we've got that independent rep, right?
Right, so we do have a rep on the regional board. We do have the number, I think, if I'm remembering correctly, our number is staying the same. In terms of enrollment, it's based on October's enrollment.
Based on October of,
23.
23. So they're always a year behind.
I'm just saying, like, I'm making this up, but like, if there were 5 seniors, you know, as of October 23, like they're obviously not gonna be there a year later, right?
But we didn't pay for them the first year.
Correct, but they would anticipate having, in your example, if the number's gonna stay the same, they'd anticipate 5 freshmen coming in.
Right. They would roll. So our independent rep, he collects that data somehow, some way?
Yes, and also the VOTEC office provides that data. So,
Okay.
Well, the study that was voted down at town meeting, are we
Yes.
gonna do anything with that, or did we just tell us we're not gonna do it?
Well, the select board, I believe, decided they were not gonna go against the vote of the townspeople, so there's nothing Manchester can do.
Right, okay.
If Essex chooses to do something on their own, or if the school district chooses to do something on their own, we certainly would support it, but we wouldn't put money.
Well, okay, and going back to what I was talking about over the summer, don't we need to defend our apportionment formula? Don't you think Essex is gonna be coming after trying to reduce that? And
Well-
we need to look at our end of it, from our end, to make sure that if anything, we're erring on the side of being generous to Essex.
Right, well, so that answers the question. That's why, in my opinion, we don't need to defend it, because the second someone wants to open that box, I'll start talking, and
Yeah.
you won't wanna hear what I got to say, which is that, what is it again? Is it a $4,000 difference or $5,000?
6.
6, even better, right? So high level, we spend $6,000 more per Manchester student we send to the regional district than Essex does.
Yeah. But that's all right, but what is supposed to flush out in this apportionment formula is that the percentage of town budgets should be similar what they're spending.
It's,
No.
that's not.
And the fact that we're spending,
We went through a period where we spent a lot more.
right, no, I understand that.
And I don't think that we want to instigate any review of the apportionment.
Okay, but we don't wanna make sure that our parameters are correct.
No, it was decided on by the two towns.
Yeah.
Back in 2001. I see no reason why the Manchester FinCom should reopen it.
Right,
If somebody else wants to reopen it, we can respond.
yeah, okay.
But I don't see that there's any need for us to. I mean, I've done calculations.
Right,
And there's no way you can make changes that aren't gonna really hurt Manchester.
I see,
The dynamics are such that you can't move it much,
right.
and we pay a lot more. And I don't see as a FinCom that we want to suggest that.
So there's no, I haven't studied it, so there's no way of desensitizing the student population shift.
It doesn't work very well. I mean, I've done all sorts of calculations and it just doesn't work well.
And
Because I actually had, you know, I'm thinking about it, a couple weeks back, I had kind of a contrary thought, which is because it has impacted us the other way, and in that way, it's not a very good formula, you know, in that it's even though it's weighted over 3 years, it tends to be rather reactive. And so it causes this, you know, big wave to happen toward one town or the other, which kind of throws our budget discussions into a bit of a tailspin for several years.
The only reason it's a wave is because of COVID.
No.
Yeah.
Years ago, we were seeing a proportionally higher
Right,
percentage of the budget increase. So if the school was going for 3.5, we'd see 5.
right.
Or something
Because
like
we
that.
had more students coming in.
That's what I'm thinking.
It's the delta on the top of the base.
There's some way of desensitizing.
But the other problem is that the equalized valuations in Essex are rising more rapidly than ours are.
Right.
So that's also impacting it. So if you try to increase the equalized valuation and decrease the impact of enrollment, it just doesn't work.
So that it's not just students, it's relative property values that are changing. So theirs are going up.
That's 25% of the formula, and the
Theirs
logic
have
behind
been
that is.
going up the last couple of years.
I get that, I wasn't aware that there was a differential.
That's what's happening in Essex. It's not only the 2.5% yearly increases, but their values are going up so much.
Right.
That their overall tax bill is,
So
Well,
basically,
some are ours.
25% is valuation, 25%
Yeah,
is
no, I know.
population, 50 is enrollment.
And the high levels, if you took the ETV out of the formula, our Manchester's goes down and Essex goes up, right? That's a simple fact. And when I was at that FinCom meeting statewide, whatever it was, a couple months ago, and I started talking with all these people at the table, who had regional school districts, guess what? They looked at me like I had 3 heads when I started talking about the EQV input. They go, it comes down to town population, student population, done and done. So they want to open that box, bring it on.
But the other thing we had talked about a month or so ago was meeting jointly with the Essex FinCom on the schools before, it's sometime in January. However, I read in the newspaper that Ben Buttrick is resigning as chair of the FinCom. So I don't know how that impacts that.
What would be the purpose for it to happen, in your opinion?
To have an airing of the finance committees on where each side is coming from.
Yeah,
And why the other side doesn't feel it's realistic.
I don't think it's a bad idea, even if I know out of the gate that maybe it's not a lot to do. Like, it's just, you know, it's like having a conversation with your neighbor, right?
It's like.
You might not get anything, but on your friendlier terms with your neighbor, you know?
Sarah, is your view that really only you could do is slow the movement of change? As change occurs, whatever of these
No,
numbers would be just carried over a larger period of time.
I think it's the
I'm not
concern,
inviting this to be an open discussion. I'm just saying, I think there are limited.
the concern I have is that Essex had no problem passing an override for the Essex Tech. Essex had no problems passing 300,000 for decorative lights in their streets. They had no problem building a new safety building. And so I'm not convinced it's actually the tax rate that's driving the problem. I think it's more related directly to a lack of trust in the regional school district. And the concern is, my concern is if Essex sticks to its 2.5%, then it's gonna blow apart the school district. And my other concern is if you won't support an operating budget, how can you support a new school? If you don't have the budget
That's-
to maintain.
And that is something that I really would like to put the Essex FinCom on the
Right.
spot and say,
Right.
look, money's money. I get capital's a little different than operating, but at the end of the day, money's money. So you gotta pick a lane. You want your Essex Elementary, or do you wanna save as much money as possible? Right? Because if you wanna save as much money as possible, we don't need to do an Essex Elementary. That saves a ton of money,
Yeah,
right?
well,
Both on the cost of the school and the annual maintenance to it. And then you can take that savings and, right, like build that into the, the mix on the Osprey, right?
There, by the way, I don't know if it was for the last meeting or not, but their Essex project was accepted by the state.
Yeah, so that's now on a
It's on
calendar.
a track.
It's on a track to move forward.
Yeah, that's kind of.
Earlier,
So-
thought,
Yeah,
Yes.
so we were really hoping it'd be 2030,
We were hoping that they would
2030.
accept it.
There's a memorial school.
Yeah, both have been accepted in the first year.
Well, we talked about this at the last meeting, and I think, I don't want to paraphrase, but I think Greg was saying this could be a discussion for the voters, like next town meeting potentially.
Next town meeting.
I think it's gotta be.
No, not April, a year from April, right, Greg?
What do you think, Andy?
Well, I think, probably there's gotta be some kind of information that's generated for town meeting, just to say, hey, this is happening. And it's coming, but because they get on the clock they have to go up, hire a project manager, and they have to hire an architect. The appropriations have to happen for that.
Right.
So I would think that's.
I could imagine, similar to last time where it was sort of a three-way split. The district dipped into their reserves to help pay for the feasibility study, and they asked each town to contribute. That's not off the table for the annual town meeting. I could see that happening
This year?
this year, yes.
So that means that the voters are being asked to start spending for something that's gonna lead down the track with a lot more spending behind it. Yeah. So, on the subject of meeting with the Essex FinCom, I was originally kind of against that because I thought it would just be more of their dialogue overpowering everything else. I'm not sure the collaboration meeting thing is moving in a good direction. And I think it's time, well, first of all, I think it's important to check the box in front of the voters that says, yeah, the two FinComs have responsibly gotten together and talked. That's an important milestone, I think, that needs to happen. And secondly, I think it's time, as I said last meeting, for Manchester to stand up and say, this is what we want with the school district. And, we've listened and we've listened and we listened, but at the end of the day, we don't want the system to get dismantled. On a 2.5 budget for Essex, it means a 1.8 for the school district. And, death by 100 paper cuts here. And, we're gonna take a stand that we recommend a stronger school system. Is there a level funded school system? So
It sounds like they're not necessarily going after that recovery budget, that they pushed on.
it's their intent for the 25 budget is.
I think it's time for people to raise their hands and say.
Actually, you gave me a good explanation, that seems to me, and I do think check the box is a valuable thing.
And I'll even throw, we got plenty of reasons it sounds like to do this, but I'll throw one more, which is, I think there's this perception, on the Essex FinCom side that we can just do our taxes at 2.5%, and we can hire 4 new police officers, 5 new firefighters, and the school and basically we got money flowing out of our pockets. And the reality is, we have a budget, we have debates, we have to say yes to some things and no to something, I just think, presenting that to them or making them understand that, has some value.
It's strange that they did a new ladder right after their neighbor, the agreement gets a new ladder truck. That's 6 months, got a new ladder truck. Their neighbor just got a new ladder truck over.
Then Buckland should figure out what's going on. I don't know if he's leaving the FinCom or just resigning his chair, I don't know.
Talked with.
Yeah.
Chat every couple of weeks.
I just happened to see it in the
Yeah.
paper.
Yeah, see,
So I don't really know what's going on, but, I certainly can contact him.
Yep.
Circle back around and see how he reacts to me and suggest that we meet.
Yep.
You know, maybe we'll try to meet on the 24th and push everything down a week. To screw up Andy's calendar now, so it's all
It's
in
his heads.
I mean, I see that
Sooner than later
Yeah.
is better.
this is half our budget and,
Yeah.
if the school committee has already indicated they need at least 3.5% for level of services, so we know there's an Armageddon coming. And we should try to think of things we can do proactively,
We can certainly talk.
so that we don't run into the same history repeating itself from last year, where it gets pushed off.
Well, let us know how the conversation goes.
Okay, yep. I'll do that and see. I'll aim for doing it on the 24th. See if that works. Okay, anything else?
So that means we do DPW on the 31st. And then library, well, then probably school on the
On the 7th,
27th, and then push library and
Yeah.
parks out into mid-February.
yeah.
Well, we had 131.
As your raise.
Yeah, but if I move the Essex FinCom to 124,
Oh,
then I
okay.
need to move
Okay.
everything else down.
Oh, I thought it was 224, okay.
No,
I think sooner
Yeah.
than is better.
okay. I'll see how that's about.
So we'll just shift everything else down and it,
Yeah,
are we?
Thank you.
but I'll let people know. I'll send out the schedule. I just need to at this point do the agenda for next week.
Yep.
By tomorrow.
It's a smaller item and it's really
Yeah.
your item, but you know, having a discussion about the reserves, stabilization, maybe moving some of that, right? So,
And where are we on that?
So do we want to discuss that next week when we talk about FinCom reserves?
Sure.
Okay,
I mean, I don't,
Yeah,
I don't think that would take too long.
okay.
The only hard part about that, I'm actually assuming we're gonna be in agreement on that, but that would require 2/3, right? 'Cause, yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, and the challenge is we've changed our target to 8%. Which means the stabilization is significantly larger portion of the total reserves. It doesn't make a lot of sense,
Right.
Exactly right.
and I believe that. In the. Is it print or print? Where are we? Print. In the print. The return is substantially more than what we receive in the stabilization fund.
But
But I think the even larger logic was when we started to add up the numbers of cash available. It just seemed unnecessarily large.
Right.
I mean, they're, that's sort of a core logic item, I think.
And particularly with the excess levy capacity,
Yes.
because you don't have to go to a town vote using that, so that gives you more flexibility if you need. Okay,
Greg, you look unhappy. Oh, CPC,
No, okay. I'm fine.
CPC.
Do we have to have a date for CPC? Or it's not the 21st?
We've sort of pushed everything down, so.
Yeah, I haven't got. 221,
22.
222. Washington State.
No, let's do it to 228. Because we're moving everything down. Or maybe,
Right, you're right, because general government is now the. It's like. Next second.
Or we're thinking that general government will be move from the 14th to the 22nd. Keep the school on the 7th. Move library down to the 14th. And move DPW down to the 31st. Get all that?
No.
No,
That's why we're looking to just send it over to me.
it's a race with us 4 hours.
It's not that bad.
Now we have minutes. Did anybody have a chance to look at the minutes or do we wait to do those next week?
I just didn't think it's good in my head.
I
recommended a couple changes in which you made, I think, and so.
have a change too, 2 changes. I could find them. One was, I believe it was the minutes from 10:25. Where it talked about, fiscal year 25. Fiscal year 23 year-end financial report. And it said the actual budget was exceeded by 1 million. It really was that the actual revenues exceeded the targeted revenues by 1 million.
Yes.
So I wanted that changed. Did you get that, Gail?
She's not, I think she's got the report.
I think this is page 5.
I'm right here. I heard it.
Okay, good, thank you.
Do you want me to wave?
No, it's all right. I see you, I see your name now, because you're talking. And then I had another change, but I don't know what it was.
I had one on Article 6 where I was talking about, should we, instead of buying the sport utility vehicle, should we put that money with the salvage of the old ladder towards the second ambulance? That didn't get in there. I was gonna double check my notes before I put it in, but Article 6 was under what I was talking about. We had that discussion. We didn't even put the vote in, but I know I voted not to do it for that reason, so I'll go in the right. I thought we voted on the SUV. We did. If I was the one spending vote, I just wanted to put. Oh, okay.
But I don't remember what the other. It was on the old report.
Approve as edited and forward me any edits you have.
Yeah.
That gets 3 put in the tank and 3 more coming.
Okay. So do I have a motion to approve these minutes as amended?
But my amendment, I have, or do you want me to just? I only reviewed the October 25, so that's what I.
Okay.
I'm good with that, yeah, I'm good.
Well, do we need to amend it first or no?
Which minutes are you trying to amend, Dee?
The 25th?
October 25th?
Yeah. The ones that I mentioned.
You didn't say what date you were talking about. You just said Article 6.
Talk about. That's one,
So maybe make a motion to accept the minutes as presented for 9:13 and 9:27. Or the other.
I do with the 3
sets.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
Okay.
A second.
All in favor?
Aye.
I'm gonna abstain.
Okay. Are you in favor of doing it the 13th?
I had some edits I was gonna send to Gail.
For both of those minutes?
Not the 13th is fine. I didn't have any issue with that. With that here. One of them, I didn't notice these in my inbox till this afternoon.
So I here on the 13th, Peter.
Okay.
I think it's the one that,
Yeah, thank you.
okay. So maybe I'll just make an amendment that we.
Yeah, you're missing
That we
on the
approve the 13th.
Okay,
Seconds.
Andy seconds. So we're approving the minutes from September 13th. All in favor?
I understand it, what I'm saying.
13th you were at.
Oh, I'm sorry, I'm in favor. I just forgot
Okay.
that one I didn't.
Mike abstains.
He rescinds his abstention.
Stay from it.
Exactly. Thank you.
Okay.
Yes, so too.
Not all, yeah.
Okay, anything else we need to discuss? I'll take a motion to adjourn.
Fabulous. Move the adjourns.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay,
Thank you, Greg.
thanks, Greg.
Thank
Yeah.
you.
Good night. I'll see you next week in person. Sorry to be away this
Yeah.
week.
I did have one
Right
thing I
here.
want to mention on CBC. Can we do it after the term? I mean, it's just, the housing trust. Is, they want another 200,000. And they're bankrolling it, which
We'll
maybe
discuss
for a
it.
good
We'll
reason.
discuss it when we discuss CPC, not tonight.
Okay, I have a CPC meeting next, well, I guess we can discuss it. Meeting.
Yeah.
I'm not sure when it is, but if it isn't, I'll just mention.
Yeah, no, we can't discuss that.
It's basically to build up a kitty for when we want to do something. And,
We
I know
can't
we've been-
discuss it tonight.
okay.
We have adjourned.
Good night, folks. Good luck with the snowstorm. I guess we're getting on Sunday, huh?
A foot.
Yes.
Is that what you're saying?
Uh-huh.
There's nothing up here in Vermont, I'll tell you. It's bare ground.
It's coming across Pennsylvania and then up the coast.
Yeah.
Maybe you need to stay in Vermont. When are you coming back?
No, I'm gonna come back Saturday because of the storm.
Oh, okay.
Oh, my goodness.
Very responsible.
It's in Pennsylvania on Saturday and Sunday,
Yeah, okay.
but the inland's supposed to get hit worse.
Yeah, there's another one next week.
Rain.
It's supposed to be raining, hey. All right, folks, good night.
Good night.
I-
Yeah, it happened on Saturday and 11.7 inches on Sunday. Saturday night. And then 11.7 on Sunday until like 4 p.m. It's calling it a wintry mix. How do you have 11.7 inches of wintry mix?
Oh, it's cement, I don't know, practice will be busy. It's the one where you're can't on the snowboard.
I think they're still trying to figure it out.
Yes, they are.
Oh, can you? Still recording. No, no.
I see. Oh, general,